Hi guys, Mr. Dell here. We are looking at CPM CC3, and this is section 3.2.4, 3.2.4, and number 3 104. So CC3 3.2.4, number 104. We have some equations that we need to solve. Okay, so they give us a set of 4 different equations, and they want us to simplify and solve for the variable. Then check our solutions if possible. So I'm going to rewrite them so we can see them clearly. So for A, it's negative 2 plus x is equal to negative x plus 2. So I have, and I always like to, on my equations, put a line down the equal sign so I know when I'm dealing with inverse operations, I do it to both sides of the equation. So the first step in this case is to look to see if there's any simplifying, right, on either side, distributive property, any combining like terms, and nope. So we're all simplified on both sides. So at that point, let's go ahead and use inverse operations to get all my x terms on one side and all my number terms on the other. So I'm going to add an x to this side because that'll eliminate it here, right? So negative x, positive x, that cancels that out. So I do the same thing over here, add an x. So I'll rewrite. So I have negative 2 plus x is 2x is equal to, over here I have still a positive 2. And then I'm going to add 2. I'm going to get my constants all on one side. So use inverse operations, the opposite operation to do so. Negative 2, so I'm adding 2. So that cancels that out, and I still have over this side 2x is equal to 4. And then the last step is always that division of the coefficient. So the coefficient of x is 2. So divide out that coefficient. Why am I dividing the coefficient? Because I want that to be a 1. 2 divided by 2 is 1. I want 1x, so I can see what 1x is. 1x is equal to, well, 4 divided by 2 is 2. So that's our answer. It said go ahead and check. So let's do a check on the side here. What does a check mean? Check means I take and I plug in everywhere there was an x, I'm plugging in my answer of 2, right? My answer I got was 2. So I got a 2 here, and then so I'd have a negative x, so negative 2, putting a 2 in place of the x plus 2. So if I look at this, the check would be, do I get the same thing on both sides? Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. So I do get the same thing on both sides. It checks out. My answer checks out. Okay, there's A. All right, B, I'm going to rewrite B. B is negative. The quantity of x minus 1 is equal to negative 4x minus 2, right? So first of all, put in my equation wall. So I look and I've got to simplify. So simplifying is, again, distributive property and or combine like terms. In this case, I can distribute. I have a negative in front of a set of parentheses, right? Negative, the quantity of x minus 1. So I've got to distribute that negative. And really what it is when you don't see a number and just a sign, that negative sign in front of the parentheses, that means it's a negative 1, right? So I have this negative 1 that I need to distribute through to each of the terms inside the parentheses. Negative 1 times x makes that a negative 1x. Negative 1 times 1 makes it a negative 1. So here I have, now I have negative x minus, I kept my minus there, negative 1. So I can simplify that further, and hopefully you see that. That becomes really, it's a negative 1x plus 1. I'm going to add the opposite when you combine like terms, when you're looking to when you have a negative minus, a minus a negative, it becomes plus a positive. It's add the opposite. So I'll rewrite this. Negative 4x minus 2. All right, so now I want to get all my x terms on one side. So I'm going to add 4x to this side because I have a negative 4x, positive 4x goes away. So do it to both sides of the equal sign. So I have negative 1x, 4x gives me a 3x. So I have 3x plus 1 equals, what's left over here is minus 2. That minus 2, remember, is the same thing as if I were to add the opposite, it's a negative 2. So then I can keep going, get all my constants on one side. I have a positive 1. I want an inverse of negative 1 to both sides. So the 1 and negative 1 cancel, and I'm left with 3x is equal to negative 2, negative 1 is negative 3. Okay. And then last one is divide out the coefficient of the x variable or the x term. So divide by 3 in order to get 1x. So my answer here, x equals negative 3 divided by 3 is negative 1. So there's my answer that I have. But again, it's always good to check it. So what does the check look like? In this case, I had a negative. I'm rewriting the equation, but instead of an x, I'm going to put that little negative 1. So negative, the quantity, negative 1 minus 1 is equal to negative 4 times negative 1. So where there's an x, I'm putting in a negative 1 minus 2. So I've got on both sides, I want to get the same number. So I look, let's see, inside the parentheses, a negative 1 minus 1. Negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2, right? Because you would add the opposite here. So you have negative 1 plus negative 1 is negative 2. So I have a negative, negative 2, which really becomes a positive 2. So what do I get over here? Do I get the same thing? So I have a negative 4 times a negative 1, which is a positive 4. And then positive 4 minus 2 is positive 2. So that they do equal. So it does check out. Okay. Let's keep going. Let's look at C. C, I have 2 plus 3x is equal to 3x plus 2. All right, I'm going to look at this. I'm going to point something out. Right away, I see that 2 plus 3x plus 2, those are the same thing. In fact, this is the commutative property, right? That around addition, they could be switched. So 2 plus 3x is equal to 3x plus 2. And if you have the exact same thing right now, I can tell you already, I know that the answer is x is all numbers, right? What do I mean? That no matter what I put into x, I'm going to get the same thing on both sides, right? If I put a 0, 2 plus 3 times 0, does that equal to 3 times 0 plus 2? Yeah, it sure does. 3 times 0 is 0, and 2 plus 0 is 2. And then over here, that's 0. 0 plus 2 is 2. So it checks out. No matter what I put in there, I could put a 1 in there, and I'm going to get 5 equals 5. I could put a 6 in here, and I'm going to get 20 equals 20. So no matter what I put in, I'm going to get a true answer. So it says x is all numbers. If you didn't see it right away and you went ahead and went through the steps, so the steps would have been to eliminate x from one side and get them all on the other side, you're going to notice that the x eliminates there and all of a sudden eliminates there. So now you're left with 2 equals 2. Now you can see, oh, I have a very true situation. Those numbers are equal. And that, again, tells you that the answer would be x is all numbers. So that's my answer for C. The last one, D. Let me see if I got some room here. We'll do D right here. So D is negative times the quantity negative x plus 6 equals negative 3x. So we'll quickly run through this one. Distribute, right? Remember what we did in B? I have a negative 1. I'm going to distribute that to each of those. So negative 1 times negative x is a positive x, plus negative 1 times 6 is negative 6, equals negative 3x. This is the case where I have x terms over here without any constants. So I'm just going to get rid of the x term over here. So I'm going to end with my x's over here, and that's okay. I'm going to subtract x from this side instead of going the other direction. So that way it's less steps here. Now I've got my constants all alone, and here I've got negative 3x and negative 1x makes it a negative 4x, right? And then I have to divide out my coefficient. So I've got negative 4 divided by negative 4. I'm dividing out the coefficient on both sides. So I end up with x all by itself over here, positive x, equals negative divided by negative is a positive. 6 over 4 can be simplified to be 3 over 2. So my final answer is x equals 3 over 2. So having the x on this side is the same thing as having the x on this side. If you like it on the other side, you could switch it over just like that. Both are the same. All right, there you go.